Have you ever looked at a block of Chinese text and wondered what all these weird symbols are? Well, Gwilym has, and despite learning Mandarin for many years, still has no idea what they are and how to use them. So in this video, we're going to give you and him an introductory lesson to some of the most common punctuation marks, as well as some of the history of Chinese punctuation. Chinese punctuation is a relatively modern concept, and it didn't formally exist for thousands of years. It wasn't until 1919 that the first book was printed featuring modern punctuation, influenced by Western practices. Before this, large blocks of text were punctuated either with a full-width space or certain characters like this or other grammatical markers. There was also the introduction of 句逗 marks, sometimes circles of red ink to denote periods. Unlike modern punctuation, these marks were added by scholars for teaching purposes and not integral to the text. So the term for punctuation is 标点符号. In written Chinese, each character conforms to a square frame, like this. Unlike English, the punctuation also takes up the entire square space. For example, a Chinese period looks like this. Compare this to a regular period which only uses half a space and you will see the difference. Also, because Chinese can be written vertically, and for much of history it was the only way to write it, certain punctuation actually rotates 90 degrees clockwise to accommodate the vertical text. Pretty cool, right? All right, first up is the full stop. 句号 or 句点. All punctuation generally ends with 号, but here, because it's a dot, we call it also 句点. Literally, sentence mark. This is a good example of how formatting is also sometimes different in regions like China, Taiwan, Macau, and Hong Kong. In China, the dot appears at the bottom left of the grid, similar to English. In Taiwan, it is centered. In vertical writing in China, it shifts to the right. And in Taiwan, again here, it stays centered. These next punctuation marks basically have parallels to English, except again, they take up double the room. 惊叹号 问号冒号分号. For parentheses, you'll hear 括号括号. Let's talk about the comma, because there are two kinds in Chinese. First is the 逗号, which is pretty similar to English, used to separate clauses within a sentence. For example, 我昨天去看了电影今天还想再去看一次. The second kind is 顿号, an enumerating comma, used to separate lists of things. 苹果、芒果、草莓等等. Take a look at this park sign showing both 逗号 and 顿号. In English, generally when you're listing out mangoes, strawberries, blueberries, and guava, we would use and at the end. This is not needed in Mandarin. You simply list out the number of things that you are talking about. So you don't need to say 芒果和草莓. We don't need to do that. That would be using an English pattern in Mandarin. These brackets have a particular use, and that is with signifying titles or major works such as books, TV shows, movies, artworks, and newspapers. The Chinese name makes it easy to remember their function. 书名号, literally the marker of book names. So for example, 哈利波特星际大战. You'll also see single brackets, and they are used for subheaders. So for example, 三国演义草船借箭, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, the borrowing of the straw boats. So these are also known as 单书名号 because they are single book title marks. In formal work, this is the formatting that's preferred, but you might see these thicker square brackets or these double corner quotes, or even just quotation mark used in less formal text. Since we're talking about brackets, in traditional Chinese, you'll see these 引号, which are actually quotation marks. So for example, 他说我很累. When you have quotes nested inside a quote, you will see these double ones. So, 他说老师刚刚说明天不用上课，我们可以放假一天. So you'll see these double ones and single ones used. However, for simplified Chinese, simple quotation marks like these are used instead. Another fun punctuation mark is the ellipsis, 删节号 or 省略号. Just like in English, they indicate pauses, unfinished thoughts, trailing off. However, in Chinese, it's 6 dots rather than 3, taking up the space of 2 characters. In simplified Chinese, the dots are aligned to the bottom of the text, where again, in traditional Chinese, they are centered. Next up is the wave dash, literally 波浪号 or 连结号. While formally they are used to link number ranges like 5到20个字 or 5号到7号, in informal writing, we use this a lot to kind of indicate a prolonged vowel sound similar to English. So maybe you want to say, wow, 好可爱, or 好想你. So this is kind of similar to emphasizing or stressing a word, maybe similar to using italics or bold. And this is super commonly used in Taiwan, particularly when you're messaging someone. If you want to learn all the names of these punctuation marks and how to use them, download the Skritter app, which features a deck with all of the main punctuation marks, along with examples and learning tips. Sign up to Skritter today to get a free copy of Skritter's complete guide to learning Chinese. We hope you found that useful, and we'll see you next time. 再见.